Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Corley from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of Japanese pickups I got. All of this stuff was acquired back in May of 2018, and yes, I realize what day it is this was posted, but I simply have not had time to actually produce this video until then. So yeah, I was sent out to Japan, and as always, whenever I get to go there, I take full advantage of the opportunity and try to pick up as many cool-ass retro video games as I can, because the truth is, even though somehow I ended up going to Japan 5 times in the last calendar year, I never expected that. I never expected any of those trips to occur. So I always treat it like it's my last and I'll probably never be back there. So that said, gotta take advantage of stuff. Now, I've done videos like this in the past of going to different store chains, most notably Book Off and Heart Off. Those are my two favorite because of the amount of just insane shit you can get. And I usually separate it, but in this particular video, I decided to incorporate everything I picked up from both Book Off and Heart Off in one video. So most of it's on this table, and then there's some cool treasure down there. Trust me on that one. You'll see that stuff last. But for those who don't know, the Off series is a whole bunch of different types of stores in Japan. There's like Book Off and Heart Off. I know people always love to laugh at Heart Off in the comments, but there's also Liquor Off and Hobby Off and Garage Off and House Off, and basically all of these what they have in common is that they're Japanese chains that sell used merchandise. People go in and take items that are appropriate for that store and resell them back to the store. Store, increases the prices, restores them, and sells them. The normal business practice we have here for various used stores, but there it's more of a chain and organized thing. Book Off in particular is actually doing a lot better now. I've noticed that Book Off now exists in the States, in just a couple of states. It's in New York. I've been to the one in Manhattan. I've been there before. There's some in California. I've never been to those. There's a couple in Hawaii. I've been to one of those, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. And then there's even one in Paris, France, and I've been to that one too. Obviously, my favorites are the Japanese ones, because first of all, they're more prevalent at Starbucks. They're everywhere. It's ridiculous. But as my buddy said, you could have a full-time job of your whole objective was to go to every Book Off in Japan, and you would die before you even got halfway there, because they build them and close them so frequently. You'd never be able to do it. But yeah. Anyway, so there's the thing that's great about Book Off is that people will go in there and sell a bunch of used video games to them. The better thing though is Heart Off, where people will not just go in and sell like 1 or 2 games, they'll go in and sell entire collections. And I've found some serious treasure over the last year or so, year and a half, if you will, at those stores. So this is no exception. I think I did pretty well, and I want to show you guys what I got. So we're going to start over here with a nice GameCube pile. Now, when it comes to the GameCube, my objective was simple. I want to pick up every Japanese GameCube exclusive. And to basically clarify that definition, I want all the games that came out on the GameCube in Japan that never came out in North America or Europe. They might have come out in North America or Europe on, say, the PS2 or the Xbox or the Dreamcast or something, but for the GameCube specifically. So, makes sense? That's usually my goal with any of this stuff, is I want Japanese exclusives. There's no logic in going over there and buying stuff I could buy here and just buying the Japanese version unless it's a special exception for some other reason. But in this case, no such conditions. So, the first game I got was one called Warrior Blade. Now, the interesting thing about this one is it was not on my list, which means my checklist could seriously have errors in it, which is probable. But in this case, yeah, Warrior Blade, I didn't see it on the list, so it caught my attention. I looked it up, thinking maybe its name was changed and it was called something else and brought here, but no, as far as I can tell, this was never brought here, at least on the GameCube. So, yeah, Warrior Blade. Then another one of these type of games that is the absolute bane of the existence of anyone who considers themselves a gaming collector is Mahjong shit. This is Kiwami Mahjong DX2. Now I heard this is, as far as Mahjong games go, is actually a pretty good one. But Mahjong obviously is not really my game. Nothing against it, it's just, it's just not for me. But that said, it was good to at least get the GameCube game off of the list. This one's a little odd. The reason this is odd is simple. This is the special Jinsai game, The Game of Life. We would know it as the Game of Life board game over here. Now, that wouldn't be that big of a deal. Board games get video games a lot, but in Japan, it's weird. This is a franchise. Like, this has video game adaptations on a lot of platforms, but it doesn't stop there. I've seen this as toys, And I've even seen this as things like ice cream bars. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, it's fine. Hey, more power to them. They're successful in that market. That's awesome. But the idea that they made and are successful with the Game of Life ice cream bars, that's kind of funny. But anyway, there you go. The special Jinsai game. Now, there's some games. Here's another thing I need to explain to you guys. Prices in these places can be amazing because essentially they're thrift stores. So when you sit there and perhaps look up a game like that and say like, what does it go on eBay? Oh my God, the guy's an idiot. Why would he go into a store and buy that? I didn't pay what eBay was charging. Trust me, I checked that shit. But yeah, in the case of Book Off and Hard Off, especially in Japan itself, it's comical. It is absolutely comical how much cheaper it will be over there. And I'll give you one such great example. One of my number one targets, actually, I'll just say it. My number one target for the GameCube on this trip anyway was this. This is Takahashi Maijin no Bukujima, AKA Adventure Island. This is basically a remake of, they gave it the Sega Ages treatment. Hudson Soft released 4 different PC Engine or TurboGrafx-16 games on the GameCube that were essentially complete remakes. This was one of them. This was the 4th one, and I've actually now have the whole set, which I'm very happy about because those games are pretty hard to find. And if you look those 4 games up on eBay, you'll notice they're pretty expensive. But over there, $5-10, like nothing, assuming you can find it. That's the tricky part. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I just wanted to give you a sense of it. Like, this shit ain't expensive over there as long as you shop in the right places. So yeah, definitely cool to get that. Now here's one I actually did pay a little bit of money for because this one is really hard to find. Like I couldn't even find really great evidence of it not selling for massive amounts of money anytime in the last couple of years. But you know, hopefully I didn't screw up, but I don't think I did. This is a GameCube game called Eisen Maijin 6. Now, again, this is a Mahjong game, but this is a very low print run, very hard to find one. Fortunately, this copy in particular is in very good condition, which is very nice. But yeah, when I was looking into it, man, trying to just find any information on it, all I could find was people just saying like it's just really, really hard to find. So there you go. So happy to get that. I think I paid like $30 for that, which was probably one of the more expensive ones, if not maybe the most expensive game at least. So that's cool. And now one oddball pickup, because this one didn't technically come from Japan, and by technically I mean not at all, I got Mario Golf Toadstool Tour. Now why do I have an American pickup in this lot? Well, very simple. When I was in Japan, the route I had been given was I was going from Japan to Guam, where I spent a few days in Guam. Yes, I've been to Guam. I even got to bounce up briefly to Saipan, which is the Northern Marianas Islands, which are, hey, fun fact, my fellow Americans, those are part of the US. They're American territories. And after that, I bounced out to Honolulu. So when I was in Honolulu, as I mentioned just a moment ago, there is Book Offs there. So I thought, what the hell? I'm within walking distance of one, let's go in there. I just kind of wanted to see it and take a look at it and see what it's like. And it was very similar, except that it was, you know, all American stuff, which is frankly not really anything I'm looking for. But I perused the games anyway, and they actually had one that I wanted, and it was decent priced. So Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, there you go. Happy to pick it up. But back to Japan here. Now, I mentioned before that I don't, well actually I didn't say it in this video, but I guess it's kind of common sense if you've been following me for a while. I'm a huge Dreamcast fan. But I have all of the games released and a big amount of the hardware. But of all the major regions where the Dreamcast came out, the section that had the most stuff I never picked up was Japan, because Japan went nuts with the limited editions and the variants and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I just never got into it. It was just too hard and just not really worth the effort. But since I was actually there, and I found some cool stuff for not much, I was like, you know what the hell, let's dive in. So the first thing I got here, this is a purple memory card, the DC Memory 4 by GameTek. Basically all this is just a memory card, but it lights up and it has 4 memory cards built in. So there's like a little button you push right here, and that switches it from memory card to memory card to memory card digitally. So you basically just get 4 memory cards for the price of 1. That's basically how this thing works. So that's neat, just a cool little random Japanese accessory. But another memory card that's really strange but neat is this one. This is an official VMU by Sega This is the Ghidorah edition. Now, this seems really odd these days, but when the Dreamcast came out in 1998, one of the launch titles was Godzilla Generations, and Sega had some big deal with Toho, who's a Godzilla company, and they made that game, and they also made a bunch of additional like random accessories, different VMUs. I think there's 3 of them in total. I have one, the green one, that says Godzilla on it. And then there's this one, and I think there's one like this that also has Godzilla on it, or maybe that's Gamera, but Gamera isn't part of the Godzilla universe. Doesn't matter. Point is, they did have this one with King Ghidorah, or Ghidorah, sorry, not King Ghidorah. That's when he becomes metal. This is Ghidorah. But yeah, anyway, this VMU is just a random little collector's edition from the Godzilla franchise. The thing that makes it odd is that it has this little toy that it comes with. But what's annoying about it is you look at the VMU itself, and it's completely standard. It's just a white VMU. Like, I would have told them, like, you know, make it gold or something, make it look like Ghidorah a little bit, because it doesn't look like anything special. You take it out of the packaging, there's no way to know which one it is. The only thing that's unique about the VMU itself is that it has an extra little data file on it, specifically that lets you play as Ghidorah in Godzilla Generations, or it has additional content. The thing you have to remember, this goes back a ways, when the Dreamcast was coming out in Japan, Tamagotchis, if anybody remembers those, were huge. I mean, they based the VMU on that concept. So as a launch title, the idea was that this game was going to be a monsters game, and it's going to have little portable versions of your monsters you can like raise and hatch and have fight versus other ones. Like, that was going to be a big thing. So this came out, and it has like a special, you know, little Ghidorah monster pre-built into the VMU. So there you go. That's a thing. I think some of the other Godzilla ones and the Gamera one have extra characters in them as well. So that's cool. And I guess they have some cross compatibility with the actual game. So that's neat. But yeah, other than that, it's just kind of an interesting story, but there's not much else to it. The other thing I got for the Dreamcast was this. They have a bunch of random ass controller designs over there. Now, the controller designs are not common. I did not see these very often. So when I saw this, I picked it up because book-offs and hard-offs, they don't know this is anything special, or they just don't care. They just label it as generic Dreamcast controller and throw it in with all the others. But as you can see, it has like this marble-looking interface. Like, this was a limited edition controller. I couldn't possibly tell you how many units or anything like that. But what I can tell you is that the controller feels very smooth, smoother than normal. And at first I thought, oh, maybe it's like a sticker or something, but it's totally not. You can see on the back that it is actually painted, because the paint just kind of stops at a certain point. So this is a painted design, which is very neat. But what is a sticker is they put down here on the controller like plug-in part. Wow, that sounded like I had no idea what I was talking about. Controller plug. They actually just wrapped a sticker of a matching color right around it. So this part is painted, but this part is not. But either way, just a cool, random little extra Dreamcast controller variant that, frankly, that I had never seen before and didn't know existed. Moving on, though, and staying in the realm of Sega. A while back, I picked up a Sega SG-1000, which was donated to me by a guy named Levi Roach. Thank you again, Levi Roach. I also picked up the Sega SG-1000II in Japan earlier this year, and I decided I needed to get more games for it, because I had a few, but just not enough. Plus, every time I'm out there, I kind of look for SG-1000 games, but the thing is, you just don't really see those very often. They're not common, and sometimes when you do see them, they're like stupid expensive. But in this case, I found a couple that really weren't expensive at all, so I just kind of grabbed them. We got a Mahjong game, whatever, and this one that caught my attention, it's called Sindbad Mystery. I think it's supposed to be Sinbad Mystery, but it actually does say Sindbad Mystery. So, translation error? I don't know, but there you go. So there's that. Moving on, let's start here. I picked up a Virtual Boy game. This is a boxed Japanese copy of Red Alert. Now, Red Alert is probably the most common, or if not one of the most common, Virtual Boy games in the United States. Funny enough, I don't even own a Virtual Boy. Infamously, I did a video with my buddy Ben a few years ago, where I donated one to him, if you ever want to see that. We tried to fix it, and we failed miserably. It was fun. But yeah, so I don't own a Virtual Boy, but last time I was there, I managed to find 4 boxed Japanese Virtual Boy games in good condition, and I wanted to rescue them because they were in a clearance bin, like at that very end of the lifespan type of thing, and I was like, they deserve better than that, they're cheap. In this case, I found this one at a hard-off, 100 yen, boxed, complete. Now granted, this is not an exclusive by any means. Like I said, it did come out here, but yeah, I just wanted to save it basically because, boxed Virtual Boy game, what the hell. Another thing that was boxed was this. This is a Soufami Turbo game called SD Gundam Generations Part 1. Now this might require explanation. I've said this story multiple times in different Japanese pickups videos, so to those who've heard it, I apologize. But if you haven't, in Japan, at the height of the Super Nintendo, aka Super Famicom as it was called over there, Nintendo ran into chip shortage issues. So a lot of developers were getting pissed because they just couldn't get enough copies of their games and Nintendo couldn't keep up with demand. So Nintendo usually doesn't cooperate with stuff like this. They just kind of say, too bad, we're Nintendo, deal with us. But in this case, Bandai approached them and said, hey, we got an idea. What if we build this little cartridge called the Soufami Turbo? And then we make all the chips and we make games that go into this cartridge and we'll just treat it like a normal deal, except we're responsible for the hardware. Nintendo was so desperate, they took the deal. As a result, Bandai released a whole host of Super Nintendo games that look like this. I know, strange little cartridge. It almost looks like a Game Boy cartridge or something, but it's not. This is a Super Nintendo game, and it plugs into this special thing called the Soufami Turbo. Now, the Soufami Turbo had additional benefits because Bandai made all the games for it. They could have the games be compatible together. So, like, basically, this is part 1 of a 6-part series. Now, if you had 2 of the games, it might say, hey, you're playing, part 2 now, but since you played part 1, we can tell because you have it plugged in, we're going to give you an extra character, or, something like that. Basically, just extra content was unlocked by having multiple games, and certain games just had different types of cross-compatibility. It was a neat little idea, but I think it only had like 14 games released for it before it ultimately failed, just because Bandai just couldn't produce enough content, I guess, and nobody else seemed to want to make games for it specifically, is my guess, is basically as to why it went down. But yeah, just a neat little oddball item. Now, the cool thing about it, though, is that it's cheap. Mostly because the Japanese don't really care, and Westerners don't really know about it. So it's a good little sub-goal to kind of get. I've got most of the games for it. There are a few that's missing. I think there's one in particular that is actually expensive, but the majority of them really not worth anything. The problem is just finding them because they're just not common to begin with. So there you go. Next up, I got a few N64 games. N64, kind of the same as GameCube in my rules. The first time I went to Japan, I had no interest in picking up N64 stuff. There's something like, I want to say 90 exclusive N64 Japanese games. And when I say that, I simply mean games that came out on the N64 in Japan that North America never got. That's it. And so I didn't really care about getting any of them, but they were so cheap, it became really hard to resist. And then I got so many of them that I was like, well, damn, I'm so close. Maybe I should just keep chipping away at this. And on this trip, I managed to, track down a few more. So the first one I got here is Dobutsu no Mori. Next one up, probably the best one of them all, Bomberman 64. Now this, you might be like, we did get Bomberman 64. Not this. This is a different game with the same name. It is Bomberman, but it's a completely different game. The game that we got called Bomberman 64 did come out there, but I think it too had a different name. So yeah, this one is confusing and is sought after because of that, because most people overlooked it thinking it was the same game. It's not. Then we got Kirato Kaiketsu 64, Ten Titan. I don't know. We got Nintama Ranturo 64 Game Gallery. It's got a gallery in it, I assume. And then we've got Ganbare Goman Monomake Suragoka. I got nothing, I'm sorry. I can't even read my own handwriting, I apologize. But yeah, sorry about my pronunciation too, I'm sure that was terrible. But yeah, point is I got 5 more N64 games off the list. There's really not many left at this point. I think I only have like 6 still up there at this point, and then I'll be done with the Japanese stuff if I ever get around to those. That'd be a nice little sub-goal to finish though. Because I did actually finish all the European exclusives. So then ironically, the only ones I would still have is a whole shit ton of American ones I never bothered to get. That'll be kind of nice to actually be able to be randomly looking for more shit in the US. But anyway, now probably the saddest story I have here as far as going around all these stores is, so as I briefly touched on earlier in this video, there's not really any hard offs in Osaka. There's a bunch of book offs, but the hard offs are all far away. And hard off typically is my favorite way to go. So that meant, all right, anywhere I go, I'm gonna have to hop the train and I'm gonna have to go for like, an hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, and see what I can find. Now, I found one store that was pretty far south of Osaka. on Google Maps, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go down to this one, because not only is there one right there, there's a book off in the same complex, and like, you know, a 10-minute walk away, there's another book off. So I think I'm gonna do well. So the first place I went to was the 10-minute away book off, because that's where the train was closer to. I went there, found nothing. Then I walked like the 10-minute, which turned out to be Google's 10 minutes, which is really like 30 minutes. I don't know why they think you're running everywhere or whatever. I don't know. Or that I'm just a slow walker. I am fat, so it's possible. But anyway, so I get out to the other book off and heart off combo. And I go to the book off. Nothing. Nothing. I found nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing I need. You know, you're going to find some cool shit, but it's like I don't need to buy another copy of this game. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So I go there, nothing. Then I go over to Heart Off and I'm like, I better find something here, man, because it took me like an hour and a half to get down here, and then I'm still have to go back, you know, and it's like you waste half a day, and of course you even pay for the trains. It's just like, I hope I find something. So I wander around that Heart Off and I really don't find anything. I was like, shit. Because, you know, and when I say I didn't find anything, like, I am still seeing stuff that like a couple years ago I would have shit a brick over, like Super Famicoms for $3. And I'm just like, fuck, but I don't need any Super Famicoms, and plus they take a bunch of space. I just don't need them, I have enough, as weird as that sounds. But I'm like, I gotta find something. So I keep digging. And I get into like their really seriously junk bin area, which is just like, you know, old music CDs and just crap. I was like, damn it, Adam, you have to find something to justify that you came all the way out here, just to yourself. And I found something. Not a great item, just an oddball item. This is an original Xbox demo disc for a game called Thousand Land. Now, Thousand Land was actually a Japanese exclusive original Xbox game. Now, I have that game, but I had no idea there was any sort of special demo for it. So this is a demo, a Japanese exclusive demo for a Japanese exclusive game on a platform that really didn't do particularly well over there, and a platform I happen to love. So I was like, you know what? That's cool. It was like 50 yen, which is like 47 cents. It's really nothing. So was the trip ultimately worth it? Hell no. But at least I got something, you know, something out of that endeavor. So there you go. That's just neat. Now, here you see a giant stack of games. So you might think, oh, is that just more demo discs? No, this is all very specific, but this requires a little bit of backstory. Last year I went to Tokyo, and I was with my buddy Fox, and we were hanging out, and we went down to Super Potato in Akihabara. Now, I've done videos on that place, I've been there a few times, and the piece of advice I always give people is, you go there for the spectacle. You don't go there to buy things. And then I've said that, and people get mad in the comments, man. That's fun. Because I'm like, no, you really don't go there to buy things. That place is really expensive. That whole area is really expensive. Do you know why? Because that's where all the foot traffic is, and that's where all the tourists go, because that's what everybody knows when they think, oh, Japan, I'll buy video games, Akihabara. Like, shit, I was like that. I thought the same thing. So you go in there, and people say, like, no, man, the prices are really good. You're saying that because you're used to eBay. You haven't been out in the sticks in other parts of Japan where all the shit is really comically cheap. When you look at the prices in Akihabara after just going out to one book off that's outside of Tokyo, you'll be like, oh, my bad. Because the prices in there suck. But the spectacle, they have so much cool shit, things you will just see you really won't see anywhere else. It's like if you want a special Japanese item, that's the place to go to see it, but maybe not to buy it. Now, the one flip side of that argument though, I will say this, if you value just the convenience factor of paying basically like 5 times retail, sure, you can get it right there now. I can understand that as opposed to like, hey man, I'm gonna go spend, you know, a whole day to go out and ultimately only find a demo disc. I get that. I understand that argument, but I'm just telling you, if you're committed to like, I wanna go out and find cool shit, don't go there. That's like the last place you go just to see stuff. You don't actually go there to buy things, but hey, to each their own. Anyway, the reason I tell you this story is I broke my rule about not really buying anything there because I saw in a bin, in their junk bin, a Neo Geo CD front loader, which is a game console I've wanted for a long time. In the junk bin, $18. Okay, keep in mind, that's like a $200 console. And I was like, holy shit, I just grabbed it. And I told this story before, but basically, long story short, I decided to take the risk. And it didn't come with controllers, it didn't come with power cables or video cable, nothing. Literally just the console. And I have since picked up a controller for it. I was given some RGB SCART cables for it, but no power cable. So I don't actually know if it works. But I decided, as I mentioned before, I treat every trip to Japan like it's probably my last. So that said, I decided to jump the gun, hope that I can get that console running at some point, and picked up a whole giant stack of Neo Geo CD games. Because Neo Geo CD games are not common outside of Japan. Even in Japan, they're not super common, but there you can get them pretty cheap. And most of the games do not require any real understanding of Japanese. Most of them are fighting games and stuff like that. So, and a lot of them actually have a lot of English in them, oddly enough. But yeah, so I'm gonna go through these and try to say some of the names. Problem is, that is the one part that does suck, is how many of these games I cannot pronounce because I can't read it at all. This would be right here at the beginning. So I'm gonna try and put subtitles right here just to help you guys out. This is only, I can't read the name. It's described as a Mahjong battle game. Quest of Jong Master. This is a battle action game by Technos. Sorry. This is, I think, Sensible Soccer 2, Super Real Soccer Game. It actually says Super Real Soccer Game. Wow. I believe this is Bushido Blade 2, but again, I'm going. That's what the subtitles for, so you guys can actually be sure. Nope. Metal Slug 2. Now this one, I was happy to find. Side story on this one. This is a rare ass game, man. These Metal Slug games, first of all, they're fun as hell. This one in particular, not common to find. And this was just mixed in with hard off, like just, hey, just filing through. They're all $5, $5. $5, yes. I don't remember if it was exactly $5, but you get my point. Like they're usually just worthless and they're just mixed in. So there you go. Nope, don't remember. I think that's like Real Bout Quizzing. It's like an educational game with the Real Bout Fatal Fury characters. World Heroes, yeah, World Heroes. Flying Power Disc. This would be me making a mistake. This is I don't know, it's a Bushido game. I accidentally bought this one twice. Don't fuck up, guys. Don't fuck up. I fucked up. Last Guardian 2, or ASO 2, space shooting game. Yeah, sorry, ASO 2, Last Guardian. Soccer Brawl. The King of Fighters 97. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special. World Heroes Perfect. The Art of Fighting. Sonic Wings 2. And King of Fighters 96. So as you can see, a nice big ass stack of Neo Geo CD games, which is really cool. The Neo Geo CD doesn't have a whole ton of games. I think it's only something like 88 titles. Now don't get me wrong, not my goal to get a full set. I've looked online. Some of the Neo Geo CD games are comically expensive, even over there. So really my goal is just get a nice collection going, get some cool games, get kind of whatever you can as long as it's within budgetary reasons or reasonably, you know, budgeted, and call it a day on that one, because I'm not really interested in pursuing a complete collection, especially for a console I don't really have necessarily a functional unit for. But yeah, what I did also pick up here, as you can see, a unit. I got a Super Famicom Junior. Oh yes, this was a okay, so you guys, I'm sure, recognize this, a lot of you, as the Super Nintendo Junior. Now, the Super Nintendo Junior and Super Famicom Junior, same basic concept. They, towards the end of the Super Nintendo lifespan, in order to kind of squeeze a little bit more out of that platform, Nintendo did this redesign. Now, the redesign is not as good. They stripped out the RGB support. They stripped out RF, not that I really care about that one, but this thing's just composite only. It doesn't have S-Video support either. It basically just straight plays the games through composite, and that's it. It's just a nice little compact design. Although, if you have one of these things like RGB modded, properly RGB modded, it can be really cool. I've got one of those for the Super Nintendo Junior. This was purely on my list as like, hey, if I found that and it was cheap enough at like a Hard Off and like their junk bin or something, then I would pick it up. Now that's not exactly what happened. Hard Off sells stuff in junk bins, but they also sell stuff in just, you know, their regular section. This is usually about I saw it a couple of times over there. Not very common, only a few times, and I saw it usually for about $100. I found it for $40, which I was very on the fence about, and a friend of mine actually had to talk me into it. I think it might have been Kelsey Lewin actually, but I'm not sure, because it was a while ago. Where I was just kind of like, like I don't really want to pay $40, But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but realistically, you're probably never going to do better than that, especially since this one's in pretty good shape. Comes with a controller, comes with a power supply, all that stuff. It's a complete console. You don't have to de-yellow it, thankfully. So it's kind of like, that's where you get into that convenience thing. Would it have been nicer to pay $20 less if knowing full well that I had to de-yellow it? Maybe not. Maybe it was nice to just have it be nice and be done with it. I don't know. But either way, I have it now. So that's the end of the video. Nope, no, it's not. No, it's not. I have some cool ass shit I want to show you guys. Just give me 1 second here to make a little bit of space. So, the first one, this story continues. This is the same place I got this exact same Super Famicom where I got the next item you're going to see. It takes up a bunch of space. I apologize in advance because, yeah, we got to congest this frame. So I was in this store, walking around. Now you have to understand, as I mentioned, they'll have a nice section for consoles that have been, taken care of, but they also have what they call the junk section. Now the junk section is very different than our definition of junk, much like that Neo Geo CD. Basically their Japanese definition of it is it's a one-word term that they use for foreigners to basically express that this console or whatever this device is not in perfect shape, something is wrong with it, it's missing items, it's incomplete, it's untested, it doesn't work, we won't take money back. Like, it can mean any of that shit. They just call it junk because that's just the fastest way to get across that there's a problem. But our definition of junk is like it's truly trash. Like, they just literally haven't put it in the garbage can yet. So it's a little different. So what that essentially means is a lot of that stuff is fine. It's just that sometimes it needs some tender love and care for one reason or another. So with that in mind, I'm scouting that area and I see a bit of a doozy. A boxed Sakura Wars Dreamcast. Nice. So for those who don't know, in Japan, the Dreamcast got, as I mentioned before, it got a whole bunch of other iterations and random things that we never got. This is actually a pink Sega Dreamcast, specifically themed for the Sakura Wars or Sakura Taisen franchise. It says Dreamcast for Internet on it, which is strange. But yeah, it was a limited edition that came with some random, like, extra controllers and a couple of the games, I think, as well as some pink VMUs. Now the thing about this one is, I admit to you up front, the box is not in the best of shape. The console itself is the only real problem. It's slightly yellowed, but it works just fine. And inside, it had everything else. It had the special controller, it had the special VMU. In fact, it had extras. Whoever owned it previously also had bought, there was a separate Sakura Wars controller and a separate Sakura Wars VMU. They bought them and included it in here. And then randomly, they also put in a black VMU. So, yeah, awesome. And how much did this pretty little package cost? About 40 bucks, which is a nice little haircut for this particular platform. Yes, it could have been in better shape, I'll admit that. All right, so I know I've done videos on de-yellowing stuff. This one in particular is a pink console. Now, I don't think de-yellowing it would affect that aspect of it, but I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I actually should do it, because de-yellowing it might also screw with the pink. So I don't know. If anybody out there would actually know that, I'd be very curious. But yeah, otherwise I'll just leave it the way it is. But yeah, there you go. The Sakura Wars Edition Dreamcast. But we're not done. We're just going to put this to the side. So there was one I've been looking for in that area. I was looking for what I call the top of the mountain store. Now that term comes from the fact that last year my buddy Fox and I, we were down in Yokosuka and we found a hard-off on the map and we're like, well, we should just go there. We went to the closest, trains location and said, oh, okay, you just walk from there. It seemed fine. But what we didn't realize is you literally had to walk up a mountain. And then you got to this, a plateau, which was a town, and then you went down the mountain on the other side, and then there was just another town down there. And inside that town was a hard-off. Now, why does that matter? Because that town was rich and it was hard to get to, like really hard and very isolated. So as a result, it had a whole fuck ton of amazing shit in it for nothing, because the whole community wasn't buying stuff that they were putting themselves in there. So yeah, tons of great stuff for nothing. Now, I found a couple of stores like that since, where I just use that term because it's just such a good store. And I was looking for that type of thing on this particular quest. Now, I never exactly found that on this trip, but I did find one store that I at least thought was so good that I went to twice. I went to this one particular store north of where I was staying from downtown Osaka, about an hour north, and I went in there, scouted around, saw some really cool stuff, but I decided not to buy anything, but I made note of what was in there. One of the things they had, which blew my mind, was they had the Japanese Pioneer Laser Active, which I think was the NEC Laser Active over there. Now that thing is a Laserdisc player and a Genesis or Mega Drive and a PC Engine or TurboGrafx 16 plus Sega CD or Mega CD and PC Engine CD or TurboGrafx CD all in one freaking unit. It also plays Laserdiscs. It's insane. I have the American version of it. The Japanese version is comically rare, very, very expensive. To give you some sense of it, Hardoff had it and was selling it for $1,000 US. And that was a stupid good price for that thing. No, I didn't buy it. I just wanted you to know I found it. That thing is so rare that when I went to Sega Fest in Tokyo and they had like this whole display of the entire Mega Drive history, they couldn't find one for that event. Should tell you something. But no, I didn't buy that. But I'm just saying, like, they had some cool shit in there. So later I went back with a few items in mind that I wanted to pick up. One in particular, saw it, was pretty sure I was gonna get it, but I had a whole long day of walking ahead of me and I didn't wanna like pick that up right then. Here it is. The Sega Mark III. Now this is complete, the box, they just kind of reverse the box. As you can see here, it just flips right back around. But yeah, this, in case you're curious, this is essentially the Sega Master System that we got. The Japanese naming convention with their consoles over there was strange. Like I said, they had the SG-1000, which was their first real console. Then they did that refresh called the SG-1002. Then the next thing they released was this, which is why it says 3 on it. But really, it's a whole completely different generation of technology. And then they ultimately released the Sega Master System. Now, funny enough, the Sega Master System, as we think of it, which is basically worthless, at least in North America and to a lesser extent, and it's very common in Europe. In Japan, that model is stupid rare. Because it came out very late in the lifespan of that platform. It did very, very poorly. And it's actually the best version. They put this thing called an FM synthesis chip in it, and a lot of games support it, even though they don't claim they do. And what that does is unbelievably better audio quality in the music, like, and the sound effects. Like, it is noticeable instantly to anyone who's even at best casual about, you know, music or anything like that. So yeah, it's pretty special. But anyway, the point is, I picked up this, the more common Japanese version. It's just a piece of Sega hardware I've always wanted, and I've never been able to get the chance to have. So very, very cool to get that in the box, no less. Awesome. So yeah, very, very awesome. Now, putting this aside, we will revisit that particular store in a bit. That will be my last item. But there was another store, which was right outside of a Toys R Us, which is actually going to still be very much a relevant thing in Japan and a few other countries, by the way, just not the States. I went out to this one store and I saw this thing and I was just like, oh my God, really? Like, it was so shocking that it didn't even occur to me at first. That might sound weird, but like, I saw this thing and I couldn't believe it. And I just didn't process it at all. I just walked around the store and almost left before I realized, like, wait a minute, no, I should probably get that. I'll just show you. Boxed Neo Geo CD top loader. Spoilers! So everything I told you was true. That was all my motivations for getting that shit, was the fact that I had the front loader. But on this trip, I certainly did not expect to pick up another Neo Geo CD. This one, boxed, complete, $75. Yeah. And the best part is, I've tested it. It works perfectly. And so I've tested some of the games and everything. It's great. It works great. Everything about it is fucking great. I tested with the RGB SCART cables and all that. Looks beautiful. And it gets even better. The power supply in this thing is the exact same one that the front loader uses. I tested it too. And not only did that thing work, the $18 unit, it worked instantly, no issues of any kind. On top of that, it had a bonus game in it. It was just a disc of Real Bout Fatal Fury, nothing special. Like, I have it in here, not Real Bout Fatal Fury special. Ah, terrible joke in there somewhere. But yeah, so now I have two Neo Geo CDs. I have the top loader and the front loader, so you can kind of think of it almost like two for the price of one, which was already heavily reduced. Boxed, man, boxed. So nice whole set of games and everything. How awesome is that? I know I kind of misled you before by saying I didn't know if it worked, but come on, come on. It's so much more exciting now. Yes, it works. So that's really, really cool. So very happy about that. But yeah, when I first saw it, I didn't really think much of it because I was like, oh yeah, box Neo Geo CD, whatever. For some reason, my brain just didn't process it until later I went back into the store and I saw it again and I was like, no, need that. Right, need that. Need to get that. But the funny thing is, it was sitting next to an Apple Pippin. I know. Apple Pippin was Apple's one and only attempt at a game console, and it didn't last long. I did a whole video on it. But yeah, I've only seen two Apple Pippins for sale ever in Japan. One is at a Super Potato in Osaka, which it's no longer there. On this trip, I noticed it was gone. So they either sold it or got rid of it. I don't know. Probably sold it. So and then this one book off, or no, in that case it was a hard off, had it. They had an Apple Pippin. I didn't buy it because I already own one, but the price on the Apple Pippin has gone up a lot in the last couple of years. When I bought one, it was like $100 boxed. That one was like $350, and that was at a hard off. So I can't even imagine what it would have been at something like, you know, Super Potato. But yeah, anyway, so that was cool to see. But yeah, man, Neo Geo CD top loader in the box. Plus now I know for sure the front loader works. So we have one more item to go. This is the last one. Now, as going back to that store where I picked up the Sega Mark III, I mentioned that I went there twice. Now, when I was leaving the first time, I noticed something on the shelf in the back behind the employees, but I lacked the language skills to be able to communicate that I wanted to look at that. So I just kind of hoped that particular item would be available when I returned, and it was. This is cool. This is the Resident Evil Edition Sega Dreamcast. Now, to be fair, there's two of these. There's a blue one and a red one. The blue one is rarer. This is the red one. And the blue one was limited to something like just 200 units. Very, very uncommon console. Only came out there. It's beautiful looking, works perfectly. It's really, you know, it was a big promotional thing Capcom and Sega did together to promote Resident Evil or Biohazard Code Veronica. There is a bit of a tragedy to this story, though. This was actually surprisingly cheap. I paid $100 for this fucking thing. Look online, that's pretty good. So I was really happy about that. It was totally complete, everything was fine, it worked flawlessly. I was so happy. No problems getting it out of Japan or getting any of this stuff out of Japan. And at some point between when I got into the US, so I entered the US in Guam, again, Guam's part of the US. When I went through various airports, at some point TSA opened my suitcase. And they gave me one of these little notifications about, hey, we entered your suitcase and fucked with your shit. In this case, what they did was opened this up. Now, there was nothing wrong, there's nothing in there that they couldn't see or whatever. This is a tragedy, guys. Whoever opened this, they put it back, but they didn't put the controller back in there. That sucked. Because there was a special edition controller that came with this thing that was only available with it, and I had it. It was in my hands. I had it. It's gone. At some point, TSA fucking took it. And I don't, to be fair to TSA, I don't think they stole it. I'm not accusing them of that. I'm putting it down to incompetence. I think somebody opened it, just went through and just didn't throw that item back in there, and then it moved on, and I'm sure somebody noticed it eventually, but it's like, where the fuck did that come from? I don't know. So whoever has it, enjoy, fucking dick. But yeah, anyway, so there you go. That would be my pickups from this time around in Japan. Hopefully I get to go back and pick up more cool shit, because, man, just look at this shit. I'm just gonna put all this stuff up here real fast so you guys can see all this stuff displayed kind of all in one shot. But look, I mean, well, again, to TSA, I don't blame them for opening the suitcase. Look at all this stuff. Most of these big items were in one particular very heavy suitcase. It's all electronics. I get why they would open it, but man, does that suck. It's like, damn, why? But yeah, especially, obviously they didn't have a problem with controllers. But anyway, it's whatever. So there you go, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.